Well, Tiger fans, I'm really not too sure where you start with that one. That was, I think, I think you could maybe say that was our worst loss for the year, and I'm trying to be a bit more measured about, I suppose, what I'm saying outwardly rather than what I'm feeling inwardly. It was, I guess, the frustrating part. I think for a lot of supporters is we entered this game against North as a what we all thought was our genuine last chance to win a game for the season and get to 6 wins. Now, not to take away from the fact that we've definitely exceeded our wins expectations in a lot of other things as well throughout 2025. Absolutely, and I'm sure we'll reflect on that in a week or two and be very proud of and happy with what we've done compared to what we thought we were going to do. But in the now, for this week in particular against the Kangaroos, I mean that type of loss just isn't really acceptable. I don't think. To let and this I don't want this to sound disparaging to North, but to let North Melbourne without Larkey and without Cam Zerha for like 2.5 quarters, who are their two most dangerous forwards by far, to let them kick 135 points is just not acceptable. And Curtis, I do want to give a shout out to. He's an exceptionally talented forward, and he played a ripper game. So well done to Paul Curtis. He was a good inclusion for them, and I thought our defenders did as much as they could. For me, I think the word blame, if we want to use that, I think it all centers around midfield, wings, and just the lack of work rate, the lack of pressure, like the amount of easy inside 50s we gave North. Not many defenses could have stopped what they were doing. It was just too clean. The amount of times they went coast to coast from a kick out, it was maybe 3 or 4 consecutive times that they just took it literally coast to coast without us touching it through the middle of the ground, unopposed. We just fell away structurally at times. We just couldn't get the game on our terms for what felt like 90%, but in reality it was probably a little bit less than that. The first half of the first quarter, I thought we did okay. We were in the fight, we were competitive, we were moving the ball okay ourselves. They got their counter attacks, we got our counter attacks. You take those kind of games. Second quarter, I mean, to beat at half time, I think we were only 11 points down or something like that. We were still well and truly in the hunt, but then that third quarter, 8 goals they piled on, and it was just another one of those games when the floodgates opened. We weren't able to stop it, and we weren't able to arrest momentum. And it's happened a couple of times. You probably don't mind so much if that happens against top 4, top 6 sides, because you sort of expect that, as is the quality difference and where they are in their footy cycle. But against a team that's only one spot above you, you would have a bit more of an expectation that we could arrest that a bit quicker, make some adjustments, and get on top of things. But credit to North, they were super. They played out of their skins, and they completely obliterated us in the midfield in particular. It was we knew that our midfield had some deficiencies, which we'll talk about shortly. But the North Melbourne midfield, I think, really highlighted that in a bigger way. And I don't think I'm being hypersensitive or overreactionary to it, but I think we need to address a couple of these things for next year as well. Because, it's just a little bit alarming. But in that third quarter, if you talk about sort of moments in time where the tide kind of changed, again, I'm not blaming Tom Lynch, because I thought Lynch was one of our best players. His contested marking, early days in particular, was unbelievable. It was kind of vintage Tom Lynch in a lot of ways. But missing that goal 25, 30 metres out on a slight angle, and for those of you who are watching the live, when he got that mark or free kick, whichever one it was, I'm pretty sure I said, this is no certainty. Like, these are the goals that he's prone to missing. And sure enough, he misses what should have been a regulation goal, brings it back to under a kick. We had a lot of the play for the first part of that third quarter, and we just didn't get any scoreboard reward. They then go down first time, goal. Second time, goal. And then everything just opened up. So it just felt like we got really deflated and really down on ourselves for not capitalising on the momentum we had in the third. And that's something, I don't know whether it's a maturity thing. Maybe it's not, because reality is that was probably one of our more experienced sides on the park for the year. And statistically, it was more experienced than what North Melbourne had out there, despite them being a lot further along in their rebuild. I guess we had a lot more older top-end players, and yeah, we just couldn't arrest it. But some stats in particular, like talking about the midfield group that really concerned me the most, and these are captain obvious, but I just wanted to reiterate them anyway. So Sheasel and Luke Davies-Uniacke, they both had amazing games. I don't want to take anything away from what they did. They were fantastic. I think LDU really took on or continued his form from last week. So they combined for 94 disposals. 94. And by contrast, our midfield four of Prestia, Taranto, Hopper and Ross combined for 79 disposals. So the two Kangaroos players had 15 more disposals than four of our Richmond players. That's pretty alarming. That's a work rate thing. It's an effort thing. It's probably a speed thing as well. A lot of layers to that. 11 of the top 12 disposal getters on the ground were all North Melbourne players. Hopper was the only Richmond player. And Hopper and Nankervis were the only Richmond players to register above 20 disposals. North Melbourne had 11. It's just not good enough. I know teams can have off days, and I know rebuilding teams especially can have off days, but if there was ever a game that we were going to set ourselves for to have a real red-hot crack at this to try and get another win, this was the game. So to sort of see the type of effort that was put up, or lack of effort that was put up, was really disappointing. Again, like I said, if this was to happen next week against Geelong, you'd probably wear it, right? You'd be like, okay, makes sense. Geelong are pretty good, and it is what it is. But I think it's just more who it's against and where they are, and that we should have done better. And I know, look, I acknowledge we kicked 87 points ourselves, which is almost double what our average score is for the year. So that was definitely a positive sign. I think we kicked 6 goals in the last quarter. I don't want that to mask over how bad we were in the third quarter, but it was good to see us, dig a bit deeper and kick some goals late in the game. I think they kicked 6 or so themselves, so it wasn't without them responding, but at least we were still trying to do the right thing and score some goals. But yeah, a pretty flat performance. Lynch, onto some small positive notes. Tom Lynch, I thought he had a really, really good first half in particular. 3 goals, 4. Again, the accuracy is the killer. Would love to see him work on some banana or snap set shots as well, because it's not really a strong suit of his. But his contested marking was elite. He took Toby Pink to the cleaners. It was a really, really good game from Tom Lynch. Seth Campbell, 3 goals. And look, he was really quiet for the first 2.5, 3 quarters. We probably did a lot of this in the later part of the game. My criticism, and I don't really know if it's of Seth or if it's of coaching moves, but Seth Campbell had I think it was either 0 or 2 possessions up until half-time. Not good. And the kid's a prime mover. He's a good ball user. He's electrifying. And I just feel like that if a player like that is struggling to get their hands on the ball for whatever reason, that to me is the point in time to pull the lever, chuck him in the midfield, get him up around the contest, let him get his hands on the ball, get him some disposals, get his confidence up, and then he adds a bit of dynamic and X factor to your team again. I just don't think we do enough to try and bring out other players into the game who are maybe a little bit out of form or need some possessions to get their confidence. And I think it's somewhere we need to desperately improve. And there might be reasons why we don't do that. I mean, you look again at the centre bounce attendances. It was spoke about relentlessly on the live, and I've seen plenty of social media posts about it. But even when the game was seemingly in the balance or maybe getting just away from us, we still kept persisting with the same trio or same 4. And it wasn't working. It wasn't working. It just categorically wasn't working. And then sure enough, Tash Houghton goes in there a couple of times and wins some centre clearances. Seth Campbell goes in there a couple of times, wins a clearance, stops a North Melbourne clearance because they've got a bit more extra speed. And it's like, why don't we just pull those levers a bit earlier? Why don't we mix it up earlier? The stats at the end of the game will reflect that these players did have some centre bounce attendances and exposure in the centre bounce, which is wonderful. But it's about the timing of it. Why aren't we doing things earlier to try and change the course of the game rather than going with what's not working for another 5 or 10 minutes and let North Melbourne kick another 4 or 5 goals? That's the part I think supporters don't understand and probably want to hear more about as to the why. And maybe it's because they want to keep certain structures and certain things in place during this infant stage of our development, and they might have some really good valid reasons behind it. Maybe they don't owe us those reasons, maybe they do, but I think to ease some frustrations of supporters, it might be good to hear what the rationale is, if there is some rationale behind it, because on the surface it just doesn't quite make sense why we don't try and arrest the momentum. But yeah, interesting. Speaking of Hot and No, he's going to be a super player. I know it's very, very early in his career, but I think we keep seeing really good progressional steps from Tash Houghton every week. 16 disposals, 2 marks, 4 tackles, 5 clearances. It's about the quality of disposal as well, and just the awareness he has to hold on to the ball for maybe that half a second longer, step through some traffic, then give off a handball to a player in a better spot so they can then get the ball moving forward. He's impacting the game aerially, like he's jumping up and making a contest, whether it's a tap or whether it's he's taking some really nice big marks as well. He's going to be he's going to be a super player to watch, and I think we've all said it before. He could definitely be the pick of the draft when it's all said and done. But it's going to be exciting to see him with a full preseason under his belt, because you've got to remember he didn't do any of the preseason. Like, he's recovering from the ACL, so he's going to get a full AFL preseason into him. We'll see him alongside Sam Lawler, hopefully Josh Smiley. Kay McAuliffe goes into the mix as well. And I'm really excited to see what he does in the years to come. I think he is going to be a super player for us. In terms of some other performers, Lamaris Rioli, even though he only had 11 disposals, I thought his tackling and his pressure was good. He obviously had that really big tackle on Harry Sheasel at the end, trying to stop the 50 disposals. 7 tackles, 1 goal. I still feel like he's building into this midfield wing stoppage type role, whatever we want to call it. And I personally think it's still worth persevering with because of his speed. He does add a lot of difference around contests that we don't currently have often enough with some of the other players we've got playing there. So, other than that, Noah Bolter, 2 goals up forward, 11 hit-outs. Again, I think it sort of still adds more questions than answers in some ways with where he's best played. I really liked his presence up forward again. So it's going to be fascinating to see what we do with him next year. But there you go. That's a bit of a review of the game against the Kangaroos. Didn't go according to plan, but again, full credit to North Melbourne. They came to play. They were switched on. They were hungry, and they got the job done. So that's all you can do on any given day, and we've got a lot to get better at, and hopefully we see some improvements on that next week, although it's against a quality opponent in Geelong. But let us know what you think in the comments below. Was there anything you liked? I'm sure there were plenty of things that people disliked. Do you agree with anything I've said? Is there anything that I've missed? Chuck it all in the comments. And yeah, we're live tonight, Monday night, for the weekly show, 8:30 p.m. Make sure you tune in for that. It'll be good to get the other guys' thoughts as well. And feel free to jump in on the comments too. So we'll see you there. Until next time, go Tigers.